Well, while I'm sitting here waiting for some RAM to come in to fix one of the boards, I figured I would test some of these 1541 drives. I don't know anything about them. This is like, the start of this series, everything was just brand new to me. I didn't even know that these had their own processor and operating system and all that stuff. So as a kid, you just stuck discs in here and they worked. You never had to worry about fixing them or anything like that. So I figured what I'd do is, this one is actually banged up a little bit. I got this off of eBay, and I don't know, I think it got damaged in shipping. It wasn't really well packed at all. And this one is a different color. It's still a 1541. So maybe I look at the model numbers and turn these around. They're all of the type with the little latch that you pull down instead of the other way. I think there's a different drive that has something that you push down there. So anyway, let me film the back of these real quick and get the model numbers and serial numbers, and then let's power them on. It's interesting. The white one here says it's model 1541 JA, I guess 1032547. Says it's made in Taiwan. So I don't know. Does it have a year on it? I don't see anything that says a year, so we might. I don't think there's anything underneath of it either now. Might have to open it up to actually see what year it was made in. This one here is HB1. So we have a JA1, a HB1, and it's made in Hong Kong. Yeah, and this one here is AB1A, and it's made in Japan. So I find that interesting. One's Hong Kong, one's Taiwan, and one's Japan, and they all have different prefixes for the serial number: AB1A, JA1, and HB1. So, all right, let's flip them back around and power them up. There's a power up sequence. When you first turn the power on, the red light should come on, and then it should go off like that. So that has a normal power up sequence. So the light comes on, and I think maybe the spindle or something turns, and then it goes off. So this one seems to be working somewhat okay. I don't know. We haven't tested a disc in it yet. This one here, I think, is the Japanese one. Yep. And I'll do that again just so you can hear it a little bit better. Alright, definitely a different sound on the motor. And then this one I think is either Taiwan or Hong Kong. And it's just, the red light's just staying on. The green light's on. I don't know if that means there's good 5 volts or not, but I figured what we do is let's start with this one since it's not behaving normally, and then we'll take the case open and go from there. Alright, there's just 4 screws that hold this on from the underneath. Let me see if I can get it off with one hand. And definitely looks like this is the power supply. I've done a little bit of reading, but not much. But that's which one is this? Is this the Hong Kong one? Made in Hong Kong. This is the Hong Kong one. Alright, I think I'm going to take off this shield right here first. And then we'll probably check some power, make sure we're getting the correct voltage and everything. But let me take off this shield, see what else we get. It looks pretty clean inside, so I don't think that's the problem. Alright, I have the cage off, and we'll power it on. I did do a little bit of reading, so I actually know what I'm looking at. There we go. AC voltage comes in here, gets rectified by these rectifiers here, CR1 and 2, gets filtered through these capacitors. for the low frequencies, I think. This is probably on the 5-volt line. This one's on the 12-volt line. And then it gets fed into these voltage regulators here. One's a 7805, one's a 7812, so it's pretty easy to tell which one's what. So let's go ahead and just take some measurements real quick. If I come here, now the motor's just spinning here. You can see that's 16 volts AC on the orange lines. And if I can get in here, yeah, about 10 volts AC on the blue lines. And if you come over, hopefully my hands aren't in the way there. We just measure on this cap. What do we get? That's 10 volts DC on that cap, and about 18, 19 volts on that cap. That's DC, so we know it's getting rectified correctly. And now we just need to check for ground. I think on this C11 we can test the 5 volts. So we got good 5 volts. And I'm not exactly sure a good spot to test for the 12 volts. Also, this connector here we could probably test for 5 volts. It's red, and if I can get in there enough. I'm not able to get in there well enough. It says there's only 2 volts. That's not right. Yeah, we got good 5 volts. How can I test for the... Let's see here. No voltage on the collector side. There, I got 12 volts on a CR2, which is a diode. 12.2 volts. So I think that the 12 volts working fine. I'm sure one of these connectors is actually 12 volts. I just don't know which one. I'll figure that out and come back. So I think our voltage is fine. Let's go ahead and check with the Logic Pro. Let's check the oscilloscope. Let's see what our CPU is doing. Also, you can kind of, probably haven't had it on long enough for anything to be really hot. But that's pretty warm, the 6502. We'll come back and check the reset. Alright, let's see if I can do this. So the reset line is right here. And I'll power it on real quick. And it definitely goes high, which is fine. And if I come on this side, pin 2's high, 3 is my clock, isn't it? Yeah, it looks like almost a megahertz. I think that is pin 8. 5.05 volts. And I think we're getting to the address lines, and I don't see, they're all high. All the address lines are high. That doesn't look right to me. Data lines, let's see here. Should have ground, high high, high, high. All of our data lines are high. There's no activity at all. I don't know, I'm going to pull this 6502. It's a little warm, I don't know, not that warm, but I'm going to pull it and see if we get different behavior with a different 6502. Just those address lines don't look right. Doesn't even look like it's doing anything. So, be right back. Alright, I put in a new 6502. Yeah, you can see this. And let's see. We definitely have activity now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, we definitely have activity on the address lines. That I don't know why the drive red light is still on, but that definitely looks better than the other 6502. I might try the other one back in there again just to make sure that reseating it just didn't do something. Alright, it's the next day, and I was messing with this a little bit last night. I pulled out, this is the one that I was working on. Pulled out the 6502. I showed, I think, the difference when I replaced the 6502 and the amount of activity that was on the address lines. It looked a lot better. But I pulled this one out, put it back in, cleaned sprayed some deoxit on the sockets, cleaned the legs of all these, and I am able to get better activity. I have no idea if the 6502 is bad or not, but the address lines were looking a little bit better, but not great. And so I figured the best way for me to kind of test this is to open up another one, another 1541, which you see here. And I just point out a few differences, I guess. Here, this one says Neutronics on it. The serial number's 4003. I think this one is from Japan or something? Let me double check that. Yeah, this one is made in Japan. This one here. And an interesting part is this section right here is for the clock source. So here's your oscillator, I guess. And then it goes to this chip here, which provides the CPU clock. But I think it's 16 megahertz, and it also comes to this chip here, the 16 megahertz, which then gets divided into 3 different clock signals for the different track reading stuff. If you read the manual, I'm not going to describe it in detail, but if you see over here, they don't have any RF, cage stuff over there on the one that's made in Hong Kong or something, whereas this one came with these little caps and metal shielding, so for some RF shielding purposes. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Otherwise, they're pretty much identical. This one does have a few more TTLs that are socketed. So this is socketed, that's socketed. Those two are socketed. The other thing I noticed is that it's using a different style of capacitor. It's not electrolytic. What is that? Dang it, I can't think of it, but sometimes this style of cap will blow due to over voltage and stuff like that. These right here, I forget what these are called. Tantalum caps, that's what those are. So sometimes I just found that interesting, that they're using tantalum caps there, whereas over here they probably have more of a ceramic style, or I don't know what those are. I guess they could be technically tantalum. There's a tantalum right there. Anyway, different style of capacitors and stuff, but everything else looks pretty much identical on the board. The board layout looks pretty much similar, just slightly different components. So anyway, I'm going to fire up the oscilloscope and let's look at the address lines. Now the other thing we could do is build a no operation adapter for the 6502. I need to have one of those for arcade stuff anyway. And I have a no op for the Z80, and we could do signature analysis on the working one versus a non-working one. So that could be something that's interesting if I can't get to the bottom of it easier than that. So all right, so I have them both on, and let's go to, let's see, pin 39. All right. So the clock is slightly off. You can see, I don't know if you can see that. The clock on the working one is exactly 1 megahertz. Whereas the clock on this one is 999.99. I mean, it's pretty close, but it's not perfect. And if I look at some of these address lines, most of them look pretty good. Yeah, it's hard to kind of tell from that. When I was reading the diagnostics code, when I was reading, let me turn these off real quick. When I was reading the diagnostics, it was saying that if the red light comes on and stays on, and the drive motor is running, that you should suspect the 6502, I think either the 6522s or some of these TTL logic chips. So I think what I'm going to do is swap out the 6502s and swap out these three chips here, the 6502, the PIA, I guess, or 6522 VIA, I guess is what they call it. Swap those out and see if that makes a difference on this machine, so I can eliminate at least one of the chips. All right, I took the 6502 from disk drive A, put it in B. Let's see what we get. And it works fine, or it appears to be working. So pretty much ruled that out. The spindle spins and then it shuts down like it's supposed to. If we wanted to check yeah, the address lines look just like they did before, pretty much. Alright, so the activity looks somewhat normal there. Let's go ahead and try a PIA now. Alright, put one of the 6522s from A into B. And seems to be booting up normally. So let's try to have the last 6522 there, which actually looks, well, it has the same date code. Sorry, you can't see that. It has the same date code, 5284, 5284, but the finish on the chip is somewhat different, which is weird. I don't know. Let's turn it on here. Alright, so I don't know, I would expect that it's probably not the 6522s, but what we'll do is we'll put all those other chips into here and see if we get the same behavior. Alright, we have all three of these chips, the 6502, 22, the two 6522s in here. Same behavior. So it doesn't seem, like the problem is related to those 3 chips. So we have to figure out, do some more reading and figure out, is it the clock circuit, which is a little bit off, that might be causing a problem? Not sure. Or is it some of these other TTL chips that control that drive mechanism? Alright, well, I was doing some reading and I read on Ray Carlsen's site, it says for this board revision, 251830, I guess, or something, says a common failure of why the drive will spin and the red light won't go off. There's many things, the 6502, one of these VIAs, but also the DOS ROM here at UB4. So I swapped UB4 from this one to this one. It's the same version and it's powered on. So that seems to be the issue. And then I put it in over here. Now, honestly, I actually put it in backwards to start with, like an idiot. But regardless, same behavior, follows the ROM chip. So I need to get a replacement for this, and I don't know if I'm going to make an adapter and burn a ROM or what. I might look into that to see if I should make an adapter for this or something. Or maybe just, what am I going to do? I'll do something. Maybe I will make an adapter. We'll see. Okay, I put the original 6502, 6522, the 2 VIAs back in there with the donor, I guess, DOS ROM right there. So this is powered on just to make sure it still works. Yep, motor stops. Sounds pretty decent. And I'm going to stop this video here. I was going to build an adapter to replace this with a 2764. But I think I'm going to order some PCB adapters because it saved me some time and make it look a little bit prettier than having a stacked sockets and stuff like that and all. You know, it would save, like, maybe it's not even worth saving money. It's like $1 for the damn adapter. So I would recommend buying the adapter. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'll come back and probably do a different video of getting the alignment and all that stuff as I learn how to do that and, you know, clean the heads and stuff like that. So, all right, cheers. Okay, I actually, I was watching the video back and I noticed that on this connector here, I was only getting 2 volts. And I was like, why the heck was that? And so I came back and I actually looked at it, and it's actually to the green LED light here. So that's a diode, and then there's this resistor. It looks like R55 right here. So I figured I would just power it up and take some voltage measurements here real quick so you can see. It's definitely, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, like maybe you can't trust that LED light. It will probably light with less than 5 volts, obviously, or it'll light with more than 5 volts. So I wouldn't necessarily trust that. Maybe the different brightness, you know, it'll change the brightness, obviously, if you're not getting 5 volts or if you're getting more than 5 volts, but definitely not like with typical LEDs. It's not a great way to verify voltage. So, all right, let's go to auto, turn that on. And come over here, we'll measure this real quick. And actually, you can get ground right here. Yeah, I'm getting 2 volts, so there's a voltage drop of about 3 volts. So if I unplug the LED and just measure it there, you can see our, you can see our 5 volts. And then if I plug the LED in, we get 2 volts there. But if I come to one side of the resistor, R50, what did I say? R55, that's also a decent spot to measure 5 volts. And then the other side of the resistor with the LED plugged in, obviously you're not getting that much voltage. So that is the voltage drop of the LED. So anyway, now I'm done with this video. Cheers. Bye.